Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Louisiana Gameday, your one-stop shop for all things Louisiana College football. A little bit of a light ship today, but we are still coming at you live with everything from the 504 to the 225, 318 to the 337, letting you know what to expect on this Saturday in the boot. Before we get started, make sure to follow us on all socials at Be in the Know. You can see it there in the bottom left-hand corner. That is Facebook, YouTube here where we're streaming live, as well as Instagram and the artist formerly known as Twitter. And you can also go down to theknow.com to learn more about us as people, who we are, what we do, listen to our podcasts, read our articles, and just get all your favorite Louisiana sports content. Without any further ado, since we're on a light load today, we're going to kick it on over to Line-Up LeBlanc over there and talk to us about what's going on in Hammond, America.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So today we have number 16 this week. Number 16 Southeastern Lions are going to be hosting East Texas A&M in Hammond, Louisiana, as we like to call it, Hammond, America. And it's going to be a 6 o'clock night game. We're going to be having military night, so anybody with a valid military ID, go over to Hammond, get a free football game, and check them out. It should be a good game. Southeastern's 20.5-point favorites. But this East Texas A&M team, they've been keeping them close, man. I don't know that I'd take that spread. So I know East Texas A&M had Lamar beat until the end of the fourth quarter. They had a two-score fourth quarter that ended up beating East Texas A&M. They also had Stephen F. Austin tied all the way up until 7 minutes left of their fourth quarter, and then Stephen F. Austin got a touchdown and a field goal to win that game. So this team is staying close, and they're playing well against really good teams. As everybody knows, I've talked about it the past couple of weeks, Southeastern, Lamar, and Stephen F. Austin are all undefeated in Southland play and fighting for that Southland Conference championship right now. So this is important games for us going the rest of the season. We really need to continue winning these kind of games because it's going to set us up to potentially have a home field advantage in the FCS playoff. Hopefully, we can keep on winning and make it in there. So I think this is a really important game for us. You know, we've got Carson Camp and Kyle Lowe playing very well. Last week, unfortunately, we had 3 turnovers between the two of them. And so hopefully I think this week they're going to come back with a chip on their shoulder, ready to play, ready to really dominate. So I think they're going to shake that off and play well. You got the running game playing very well. You know, you got Jaden Henry, Calvin Smith Jr., DeAndre Jackson playing very well. They've got over 1,400 yards of rushing, 18 touchdowns between the three of them. And honestly, Kyle Lowe is our leading rusher as a quarterback. He's got, I think, 4 touchdowns as well. So running the ball very well. You got some deep threats, Jalen Domingo. You got Brandon Hayes playing well in the wide receiver position. I think Jalen Domingo is averaging 59 yards a game, and most of those are from deep balls. He's getting a couple of those a game. So playing very well defensively. We gave up our first points last week. First defensive touchdown. They got a defensive touchdown, and I think they got a pick six. So defensively, we shut out 2 teams and then gave up 7 points last week. So I think defensively we're playing very dominant. We're playing very good. We got some all-stars on our team. KK Reno. We got Cameron Ford, of course, Caleb Proctor. You guys know him on the show, and Ian Connolly Goodley as well. Left Southeastern, played for Troy, came back to play for Southeastern again this year, and this defense is just being is dominant. One thing that did come out this week for Caleb Proctor, he is ranked number 5 on the top 10 FCS prospects in the 2026 NFL draft list. So that's really good for the school to get that recognition, and for him as well, as an individual to get that recognition as well. We got 24 sacks on the year, 54 tackles for a loss. So I think what my prediction for this game is that East Texas A&M, they're the 2017 D2 national champions, right? So they're the team, and that was back in 2017. So they've pretty much kept that same recruiting strength going forward. They're just playing in a higher level now at the FCS. So I think they're going to keep it close. They're going to play very well. If you look at their stats, they're not a 2-6 team. They're just games did not go their way. So I think they're going to keep it close. Southeastern's going to outlast them when it comes to stamina. At the end of the game, we're going to play well. We're going to, we're just going to keep on hounding them, keep on going at them. I'm thinking Southeastern 38, East Texas A&M 17. That's my prediction for the week, and I think we're going to continue our unbeaten Southland play and look forward to FCS playoffs.
Yeah, as negative as it is to be a Louisiana football fan at the moment, not just college football, but football fan in general. At least the team in green and gold is holding up their end of the bargain, ranked 16 in the FCS, undefeated in conference play, and having some NFL prospects. On the defensive side of the ball. So we would like to thank you for those in Hammond America for holding us up.
Absolutely,
we're down at our lowest right now.
Yep, Southeastern has had their low years, of course, but this is definitely one of the best teams that we've had probably since the Brian Bennett years. And so I think Frank Scelfo and his team have put together a really good squad, and I think they're really fun to watch. So, of course, it's a bye week this week for LSU fans. So I think if you want to watch some fun football, 6 o'clock tonight, turn it on the ESPN Plus, turn over to Southeastern, see what we can do, and see if we can impress you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Tulane. They played already this week, and obviously that didn't go the way anybody wanted. LSU's on a bye week. So, kind of the two mainstream programs in the state of Louisiana are off. So we'll have to make sure we tune in to another team who could continue the train roll. And I know you've got some stuff to do, so go take care of it, my man. Family comes first. So do what you got to do. We appreciate you stopping on, even just for a few minutes, to tell us about what's going on with the Southeastern Lions.
100%. Line up, guys. Thank y'all very much.
Absolutely. Moving on from down in the actual 985 of Louisiana, our fifth area code that we don't talk about in the intro, up on to the 318, a team who actually surprised a lot of people last week and probably secured their coaches to next season. And Mickey Joseph going into, I believe it was in Allegiant Stadium, neutral site game. You got Grambling versus Jackson State, and the Tigers were able to pull one out. Talk to us about what you saw last week from the Grambling Tigers.
So excuse me. Good morning. Last week we had Grambling go to Vegas, and they played with house money and they secured a big victory. And this game was not a game that was just a upset last minute. No, Grambling came out and they made plays early. They got down 10-0 to start the game, went into halftime down by 1 at 10-9. Then next thing you know, in the third quarter, they came out and they took the lead 16-10, came out, and then they scored again to make it very interesting with a 2-score lead. Jackson State, being the champions that they are, did make a push late in that game. They lost their starting quarterback. Once he went down, Grambling kept fighting. But like I said, Jackson State, they are the champions for a reason. And they made plays to put themselves back up 24-23. Grambling quarterback T-Set, former quarterback at Southern, put his body on line. He got injured. I would like to report that he's been reported as responsive. Everything's well. He's doing well. But Grambling went down, kicked a field goal, took the lead, left Vegas with a huge win, and shook up the SWAC.
Absolutely.
It shook up things not only on the east side, but also the west side. Grambling put themselves back in contention. I'm sorry, not themselves, but actually they kind of did. They're not officially mathematically eliminated. It's just unlikely, but there are two teams that have thanked them heavily. That would be on the east side, Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman as well. On the west side, Texas Southern thanked them because now Texas Southern, they don't control their own destiny. However, they are, waiting for a slip up and they can be back into the mix as well. Mickey Joseph, huge win for him, biggest win of his Grambling tenure so far. He beat Jackson State last year, but when they beat Jackson State last year, that was a game that was not counted as a conference game. It was early in the season. It was before Jackson State really got rolling. This game here, Jackson State has been rolling. They've been fully dominating most teams they've played this season, and Grambling went in and got the big upset. That really unlocked, like I said, the SWAC, shook things up, and now it's kind of a let's see, as the chaos continues, because it also made that Bayou Classic a little more interesting. Grambling has not won the last 3 years, and now it looks like they may be a favorite going in.
Yeah, so I mean, Grambling's really favored in their last 4 games here, if you look at it. So obviously on the docket today, you got Alabama A&M, and then looking forward, you got Bethune-Cookman, you got Alcorn, and then you got Southern, obviously,
Yes.
in the Bayou Classic. So really, they are favored in every game from here on out, based on
Maybe not that Bethune game. Bethune is
Bethune's going to be
3-1.
close.
Yeah, Bethune's 3-1 in the conference. They are also in contention for the on the east side. So
On the east side, right?
so they may not be favored in that game. However,
It's a
like
winnable
you
game.
mentioned, yeah, it's a game where they can compete.
And here's the thing is like you said, they're not mathematically eliminated from the West, but I mean, Prairie View is undefeated, and it's hard to think that they're going to lose here on out. So even if you don't contend in the West, even if you don't get into the SWAC championship, if you're Grambling, if you can win, even 3 of these last 4 games, and you can close out the season at 8-4, that is a huge, huge testament to what you can do in the future. So that would be really important for this team, and we can look forward to that. What are we looking forward specifically today? Alabama A&M at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, this is a game. We called it our No Chill Sports Bowl because I am actually attending Alabama A&M, and then my
Okay.
co-host, he's a big Graham fan, being that he lives very close to Grambling. This is going to be a game where it's going to be a measuring stick game for not only Grambling, for Alabama A&M as well. Alabama A&M has come off a huge loss in the Magic City Classic to Alabama State, who is also sending huge thank yous to Grambling at this time. Grambling is on a 2-game winning streak. If they win today, they can definitely keep things moving going into that big matchup against Bethune-Cookman next weekend. We get to see how this team bounces back after a huge win, and also after the emotional roller coaster of seeing your leader go down on the field in T-set. We'll get to find out a lot about what this team is built of. All the, I guess you could say, kind of all the cliches of what do you got? What is it going to take? How do you push through? So, we'll get to find out a lot about Grambling today. This Alabama A&M team is one whose defense, the weakness in the defense is probably the secondary. And if losing your quarterback is not the spot that you want to be in at this moment, man, it's going to be a huge game at 2 o'clock. That may not mean anything for the SWAC as far as contention, and this is pretty much about pride and building for next year. At this point, look forward to seeing how both teams kind of respond after polar opposites of what last week had for both them both coaches. Both coaches with NFL ties. So it's definitely going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, and then traveling down south. So from a team in Grambling who's really on the up and up and looking forward to next year with a positive light, to a team who's kind of got, not a lot to look forward to. Obviously, a coach is gone. You're paying two coaches at the same time, nearly $1 million combined. Um, the Southern Jaguars. Now, one positive can be said about the Southern Jaguars right now, and that's they scored their most points of the season last week. 35 points, I believe, is how much they scored against Florida A&M. And, Trey Holly looked like the guy who everybody wanted him to be when he was in Baton Rouge. So talk to us about what's going on kind of in northern Baton Rouge with the Jags.
Yeah, so Southern, as you have previously mentioned, replaced their head coach. Coach Graves was relieved of duty. Interim coach Fred McNair has come in. Coach McNair has a lot of success in the SWAC, in the SWAC West specifically. Well, I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm sorry. He was in the SWAC East when he was having his success at Alcorn State. Once after 2020, when FAMU and Florida, when FAMU and Bethune-Cookman came over from the MEAC and joined the SWAC, then Alcorn moved over to the SWAC West, but that didn't stop a lot as Alcorn has been able to win some big games. You've got a coach with experience calling plays, and that's kind of one of the reasons why Coach Graves was let go in the season. Like he was asked to make Fred McNair the play caller, and once he didn't, that was kind of the end of that tenure. But Fred McNair came in, called plays, as you mentioned, dropped 200 and I'm sorry, he dropped 35 points, but they had over 300 yards of offense. He had 145 from Holly, 197 passing. Defense got a little bit of a boost. They've still got some work to do on that side of the ball. But this was a game where Southern can, although be it a loss, show a little bit of confidence as they came out and responded well after a week, of something we've seen a lot where replace a coach and all of a sudden you've got a little bit of pep in your step. Everybody's kind of rallying together. So it's going to be interesting to see. Today they take on UAPB. UAPB is another team who has struggled, but they have not replaced their coach. They tend to rally behind their coach a lot. They have a offense that is very underrated. A name that a lot of Louisiana should know. Tony Hull is the offensive play caller. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to pass the ball. The problem with them, they don't seem to get things together at the same time. Offense will play well, defense will play well, but they may not play well together.
Yeah.
But this is a very winnable game for Southern today, 2:00. Arkansas Pine Bluff is only one SWAC win on the season. This could be Southern's first as well, so we shall see.
The good news about Southern is not only today against Arkansas Pine Bluff, but next week against Alcorn State that's two very winnable games. So you can easily turn from, a 1-7 team who just fired their coach to a 4-7 team who's ending the year, kind of on a hot streak. And then, then you look forward to next year and you're like, man, who's the head coach? If McNair can prove enough in these last 4 games, do you think that he would then be able to take that interim title off of his head coaching job?
I think he can. The problem I do see is that I think a lot of Southern faithful would necessarily, although they would like McNair, I think that taste of having that interim tag removed from a coach and just keeping them, the words lazy hire would kind of come to mind.
Sure.
They missed out on a coach, and honestly, it wasn't their fault last season, and not last season, the season before, and before they hired Coach Graves and removed the interim tag off They missed out on a big coach who they got to watch in the Celebration Bowl take on Jackson State, and Coach Chennis Berry, who had been with Southern before. So a lot of faithful probably will want to still do that due diligence and not just say, hey, let's remove the interim tag. Now, if he gets it rolling and they start winning big, that could change things really quickly. But as of this time, the story I've been hearing is, we're glad to see him doing well, but let's still go make sure we find someone who's going to, bring some excitement.
Sure. Yeah. But again, 35 points last week was the most of the season. They had 34 in week 2 when they beat Mississippi Valley State. But if you can continue to build on that and just, score 30 points out from here on out, especially, against teams who you should be beating, like Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Alcorn State, then that'll at least build some momentum going into the coaching search to show people nationwide, hey, we might not have had our best year yet, but we've got some positivity down on the bayou. So hopefully they can figure that out. But again, they do have some positives moving forward. What's the status on Trey Holly? Do you think he sticks around one more year?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, no, just wondering what you think about Trey Holly. I mean, obviously he's coming to Southern and he's dominated. He's got plenty of time left. It's not like he's running out of eligibility anytime soon. So do you think he sticks around for the Jags, or do you think he's out?
I honestly don't know. That's still a delicate situation. Once he handles his legal,
it's more of a legality
matter,
than anything, right? Yeah.
Then we'll probably know a little bit more in after April, spring time frame. So
yeah, it was never a talent question with him. There's a reason, I think he's the all-time leading rusher in the history of the LHSAA. And then he also, he went to LSU and was expected to be, one of those running back by committee backs. We're seeing it now. We've got Caden Durham, and we've got Harlem Berry down in Baton Rouge, and the purple and gold, and then Trey Holly's just across the way, and the blue and yellow. So obviously, some positivity around both of our HBCU programs that we've highlighted on the show. Like we talked about earlier, Tulane, unfortunately, did not get the win against UTSA. And not only did they not get the win, they got dominated whistle to whistle. It was not a good look for the Green Wave. And a lot of people are talking about, is it because of the, John Summerall looking ahead? Because he is in such hot talks around so many different coaching jobs around the nation. And we'll get to one of those in just a couple minutes. Trust me, it'll be our first time being able to talk about it. So we'll definitely talk about it. And then obviously you've got ULM taking on Old Dominion today. Old Dominion, big favorites in that matchup, 16.5 points from a team that was really optimistic about 3 to 4 weeks ago. Things have started to slide down, unfortunately, for the Warhawks, which may mean some bad news for Brian Vincent, as he will definitely get looks for that UAB job. So we'll see what happens there. But he's got a lot of stuff on his plate. Not only is he the head football coach, he's also the interim AD. So there's a lot going on for Mr. Vincent up in the 318, and then Louisiana Lafayette today. I haven't even checked their schedule, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if they have a bye or what.
No, they got South Alabama.
South Alabama.
Yeah. South Alabama, they are
that's 2 underperforming teams.
3.5 point underdog in that game. So yeah,
that's 2 teams who really would have liked to see themselves a whole lot better than they are right now. Especially with the way South Alabama started this year, almost beating Tulane, and they haven't won a game since. And then obviously there has been no team who's been hurt more by injuries than the team down in Lafayette. So, not a super positive week, not a great week for Louisiana college football here, outside of what we've already talked about with Southeastern and Grambling. And we're going to skip over, our typical national segments here, just because there's a lot bigger news to get to, and that is the firing of Brian Kelly. While I'm kind of going into it here, if you wouldn't mind, pull up the Twitter poll that you did a few days ago. Because because I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoy, if y'all don't follow No Chill on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it nowadays, please do so. Really good follow, puts out some really good content, and I love these, faceless names that they put out, these polls that they put out where they just give you stats, say, hey, look at this, tell me what you think you would do. So obviously, listen, when I saw it at 7:05 p.m. on Sunday night, I started singing the Wizard of Oz, Ding Dong, the Wicked Witch is dead. I mean, the ruby slippers are under the house. I think a lot of people in Baton Rouge for a while had soured on Brian Kelly. And listen, it's hard to look at a 34-14 record and be like, man, he was terrible. But it wasn't just about the football product. It wasn't just about what he's putting on the field. It was about the attitude around the program. It was how he handled himself in the media. It was the disconnect from Louisiana. There was a lot of things surrounding the Brian Kelly situation that kind of had fans really celebrating, which, no, listen, I get it. It sucks. You should never celebrate somebody losing their job and, he's, he can't do what he wants to do right now. But also it's hard to look at a $54 million buyout knowing this guy's about to get more money than half of Louisiana will ever make in their entire lives and then feel bad for him. So, I think the most telling thing is how positive players, former players, alumni, and administration around the university reacted when he was gone. The fact that people were celebrating this not only as fans, but as players, as former players, as student athletes, the fact that those people were happy about what happened only further proves the point that he had lost that locker room. And once you lose a locker room, it's really hard to get it back. On the field, 34-14 overall over his 3.5 years, 19-10 in the SEC, and 5-11 overall in ranked matchups. That's really the most one. That's the one that stands out the most, because the expectation for LSU is to win big time games. A 9-3, 8-4 season should be the lower end of your expectations, and that's the highest we ever achieved. So we've got to turn some stuff around. He just never bought in. To me, it was more about what can LSU do more? What can LSU do for Brian Kelly? Not what can Brian Kelly do for LSU? And that's kind of how he felt about it going in, and that's just kind of always the feeling fans had about him. I mean, to me, that's just how it felt here in Baton Rouge. But it was just a bad situation that finally met a tumultuous end after that Texas A&M loss.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We had a first on College Game Day. We had to go to a replay review of the McAfee kick.
Okay.
The first one was terrible. Didn't matter. The second one over the upright and curved back in. So they had to they ruled it no good at first. And had to go to a review, and they marked it good. So the kid won $300,000.
I love, dude. That's awesome when those kids get to just, I mean, they get to set their next 10 years for the future, really, with that money. I mean, that's a huge thing. While we're talking about Brian Kelly, obviously we have to talk about Scott Woodward too, also gone. And listen, I really don't want to get into the politics of it all, because that's all it is. It's a political issue between the athletic director at the flagship program and the governor of Louisiana, which is just sad that college football has gotten to a space where one of the 50 governors, I mean, we only got 50 of them, and one of them decided that his university, which isn't even his university because he didn't go to LSU, has not lived up to expectations or whatever. But if you look at Woodward's reign as athletic director, he was here for 6 national championships across 5 sports. We got 2 in baseball, and then 1 in football, 1 in women's basketball, 1 in gymnastics, and 1 in track. So, I mean, did he, make all those hires and create all those programs from the ground up? No, but you also have to give him credit where credit is due, and notice that the athletic director has a lot of say-so over what goes on in the athletic programs. I mean, that's why they are the director of athletics. And six times while he was here, we won a national championship. So you have really got to give him his flowers. And as much as Governor Jeff Landry has annoyed all of us over this past week, I have no problem thinking Scott Woodward will find a job and make his mark on college football, college sports in general from here on out.
Yeah, I do want to clear one thing up because a lot of people have said it. He's had the two biggest buyouts. He hasn't. He had the Brian Kelly, the Jimbo. He did not. He was not responsible for that buyout. He was responsible for getting Jimbo there. The buyout with Jimbo was an extension that came when he was long gone. So
yeah, I mean, listen, that's what's really annoying me about it, is they're blaming him for Jimbo. Jimbo got there and he was fired 4 years after Woodward was gone.
Yeah.
Like Woodward was long gone from that university. His name was no longer in the halls. Nobody who worked in that football program other than Jimbo was there when Woodward was there. So you can't blame the guy for something that happened long after he was gone. That's not how that works. That school made a lot of different choices once Woodward is out the door, and that's ultimately what led to Jimbo, getting bought out. So the fact that he's getting blamed for the Jimbo buyout is wild. So obviously, here's where we're at. LSU does not have a head football coach for next year. Currently, interim Frank Wilson, who obviously a lot of people in Louisiana know. He's had multiple stints at LSU. Is one of the best recruiters you'll ever see. If you hear him talk, you want to run through a brick wall. He's phenomenal, but he doesn't have a great run as a head coach. You look at him when he was down at UTSA. You look at him when he was at McNeese, and neither one really worked out great. But he's the one entrusted now to lead the Tigers through the last few games of their season. So we'll see how that goes. I really like him. I think the greatest thing that happened is we saw 100 alumni in the indoor facility this past week. You saw Jacob Hester, you saw Rohan Davey coming in, just giving great speeches and letting them know, hey, we're here for you. This is going to be a tough, tumultuous time, and we're going to help you through it. Andrew Whitworth kind of gave his words on it. You've still got some really good coaches in the building, and Corey Raymond, and obviously we love Frank Wilson. So, I mean, the end of this year could really spell the future for LSU. If we go out and we lose the last four, we go 1-3, it's not going to be great. But if he can figure out how to win 2 or 3 games, I think that'll set us up in the future. And the number one thing to me, before we move on to what's the future for LSU football, we have not had any. We have had a total of 0 decommits. I think that speaks to who is in the building and what those commits were looking for. They didn't commit here because they wanted to play for Brian Kelly. They committed here because they wanted to represent the purple and gold. They committed here because they want to represent LSU and they want to play for the people who are in the building setting the culture. So to me, that's more important than anything else I've seen since Sunday night at 7:05.
I think it's also telling that you've seen, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2 more commits since the
and
Byron as well.
It's not like they were like 1-star walk-on preferred. They were like 3 or 4-star commits who were like, no, this is where I want to be. And it was the day after he got fired.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm being optimistic about our future. I've said it multiple times in the show. I was never a huge Brian Kelly guy. From the second he came on, he just wasn't a fit here. And I know that gets thrown around a lot on national media, saying fit, culture, all that kind of stuff. And it may be a cliche, and some people say they don't believe in it, but I don't care. I believe in it because you can see it. When Coach O was here, Coach O was not a great head football coach, from the sense of he knew all the X's and O's and he was going to outplan you. And, he had his demons outside of the building, but he won a 2019 national championship because he had players ready to run through a brick wall who wanted to play for him and represent the state. And I think that's what we need. So, kind of thinking into the future like that, this past week on X, you put out kind of that faceless name or those faceless statistics blind resume poll. And I mean, look at it. We've got 9 coaches here.
Yeah.
And it's you look at the stats, and obviously a lot of people are going to make a lot of different assumptions about who they would take out of these people. Before I saw any of the names, before I saw the faces, I had a feeling I knew who I wanted outside of, anything to do with this. And it actually lined up pretty well with the three I narrowed my search down to based on this, which would have been Coach A, Coach C, and Coach F. Those are my three favorites based on the blind resume. And they're actually three of my favorites now. So, obviously you guys can look at this, and if you haven't seen it yet, you can take your pick of who you'd want to coach. To me, I think the most telling thing is that top 10. I mean, you want your guys to win top 10 matchups. I mean, when a big program's taking on a big program, can they win the ball game? And if you look, I mean, 50% of top 10 games, that's great to me. That's phenomenal. If you can win 50% of the matchups you're taking on top 10 teams, let's keep that rolling. Top 25%, you look at 62%, with Coach C there. And obviously we're going to see that he doesn't have the biggest stretch of games. He hasn't coached a lot of games as a head coach. So you've got to wait and see, once he gets up into the 60s and 80s and hundreds of games coached, how do those percentages change? But go ahead and reveal who these coaches are. So obviously Lane Kiffin, Coach A, he's the guy who everybody's saying is the hotness of this coaching search, and not only for LSU, but for every program who is currently without a coach. I think there's 12 to 14 of them around the country. You look at Coach C, who was my favorite, and that's Dan Lanning at Oregon. I know he said this past week, I'm not leaving Eugene. Like, there's no point in me leaving here. And he's 100% right. There's no point in him leaving here, leaving there, because he's not going to get any more resources down here that he doesn't have up there. I mean, he's got Phil Knight, and that's all he needs up in Eugene. And then, surprisingly enough, Jeff Brom, blind resume, looks great. People forget about him because he's kind of one of those older coaches. He's not, young in his, 30s, 40s, 50s, and, making his mark in the SEC and having all this flashy, wonderful offense. But he's a really good coach. He's coached a lot of games, and he's coached them well. I mean, look at him, 63% win percentage, 36% in his top 10 matchups, almost 41% in his top 25 matchups. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good coaches on this board. I think any of these could become the head coach at LSU. I really think they all kind of have a chance, except for Dan Lanning, unfortunately, even though he's my favorite one. But there's kind of five names to me that have stood out, and I think four of them are on this board. So obviously Lane Kiffin, everybody's talked about it. He's at Ole Miss right now. He's in Oxford. But the second Penn State opened, they were like, oh, could Lane Kiffin go to Penn State? Then Florida opens, and everybody's like, oh, Lane Kiffin's definitely going to Florida. And now LSU opens, and everybody's like, oh, Lane Kiffin's born to coach at LSU. So it's always Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin. He is always the golden goose when it comes to the coaching search of, can somebody finally pry him away from Oxford? Do I think LSU is the school to do that? With everything that's going on politically, with the complete disconnect between the Board of Supervisors and interim AD Verge Osbury and the governor of the state putting his nose where it doesn't belong, it's hard to think he would leave a stability like Ole Miss, where he is beloved and people are wanting to build statues of him, to come down to Baton Rouge and go to a situation where he doesn't know what the future looks like. So that's hard to think about. Absolutely. I love him.
Yeah.
I think he's a great football coach. I don't think there's any denying that. And I think he's gotten better with time. I mean, you look at Tennessee, that didn't work out too well. You look at when he was in the NFL with the Raiders, that obviously didn't work out too well. FAU wasn't perfect, but he's really made his mark at Ole Miss and done a very, very good job.
Yeah. You also have to think one thing that bodes well for him, if you're an LSU fan, he went to USC and handled USC during a time where they were facing sanctions and all this turmoil and things like that. So he's got experience kind of riding ships of huge brand names. So that's something that I think bodes well for him. Also, I'll say this is some advice I've received, just in personal life and also in, just in life in general. the loudest voice isn't always the most important. So
Sure.
that's one thing, and follow the money. Who do the money
Yeah,
people?
he said on, I think it was on Pat McAfee show, he was like, "I've never made a decision for money in my life, and I never
All right.
will."
Yeah. Yeah. Not
I
not
think if
and when I say
I
that,
think
I
if
don't mean
twelve
on his
million
side.
dollars, I
Yeah.
think if $12 million come knocking at your door, it's going to be hard to say no. But
Yeah.
also, I feel like Lane Kiffin's one of those guys where he's like, "Hey, I just got an offer for 12 million. If you make it 12 and a half, I'm not leaving." So, the good thing about Lane Kiffin is he's got autonomy to make whatever decision he wants to make, because there is no doubt in my mind every school in America is going to call that man.
Yeah.
Um, moving on from him, you got the guy right next to him in John Summerall. Not a lot of experience. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier with the, Tulane losing to UTSA. Is it possible he's the favorite for the LSU job because he's in the state? Does the governor, who says he's not picking the head coach, but he picked the board of supervisor who is picking the head coach? So, trickle A, trickle B. Is it possible John Summerall's the favorite to get that job? We don't know. We're not inside the building. Obviously, Verge Osbury came out a few days ago, or it could have even been yesterday, and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to get the best coach there is, and we're going to get the best coach there is for our program." So, does that mean the guy who is going to make the most money? Does that mean the guy who everybody wants, or does it mean the guy who he thinks is going to come in and embrace LSU for who LSU is? And I think John Summerall is a guy like that. I mean, you hear him talk about New Orleans, and you're like, if you're not with us, you're against us. And I came into this city to build it back to what it used to be, and he has really embraced the boot. And I think he could do that at an even bigger level with LSU. I know our Tulane fans who are on here wouldn't love that, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I don't. So I know a lot of people made a lot about the big loss on Thursday night. I wouldn't read too much into it as far as if LSU were to pursue him to say, "Oh, well, he just lost his big game." I mean, coaches. I mean, it happens. Don't read too much into it. Also, I don't think that like looking here, I don't think he's a bad coach. He hadn't had many opportunities in
right.
top 25 matchups, nor has he. I don't think he's had any top 10 matchups, if any. I think it's like one or two. I've got to go look at the raw numbers. But he hadn't had many opportunities. Same with Dillingham. But if you look at those numbers, they're two of the lower numbers on this list. Brent Key has more because he's in the ACC and he's had to face Georgia every year in the good old fashioned hate. So yeah, it's hard for me to sit there and go, hard pass on those two guys. When, especially if you look, Dillingham had a terrible first season and turned it around big time last year. He's still playing great this year. Same thing with Tulane. They've had two pretty high seasons so far under Summerall. So I slow, pump the brakes on just, saying that, because of those losses, those guys are, or Summerall's not a good coach or whatever, or not a fit for anywhere. So
Yeah, I mean, I think Summerall is going to get a lot of phone calls.
yeah.
You've got Arkansas open. He's going to get a call for Arkansas. I think, obviously Lane could leave Ole Miss. If he does leave Ole Miss, I think they give a call to Summerall as well. So, I mean, he's not a guy who's going to get left out. Excuse me. I had a list of 5, and you just touched on the two more of them, and Brent Key and Jeff Brom. Those are two really, really good football coaches. That's just, it is what it is. I mean, Brent Key doesn't have much experience. I mean, you look at him, he's the second lowest number on the board as far as games coached. And yet he's winning top 10 matchups. He's winning top 25 matchups. And he's beating teams, like Clemson. He's got Georgia Tech undefeated in the top 10 right now. It's hard to think he would leave just because of what he's done. and how he's quickly turned around that program, and obviously undefeated. It's his alma mater. Like, he is all about it. But when I watch him coach and I listen to him in press conferences and I listen to him in on-field interviews before, after, during the game, he's a guy who I could see being a really successful coach in this environment.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever too big for him. And he's a really, gritty guy. He wants to win football games by any means necessary. And Georgia Tech's never going to get out physical. Like, they're going to win the physicality matchup each and every game they play. And I think that's really important when you look at what LSU has been recently and then how they had succeeded in the past. I already kind of touched on Jeff Brom about how I think he's just a super underrated coach. He's won everywhere he's been, and he's taken a Louisville program who, kind of was just in the middle, floating in space when it came to ACC. And now it's him versus Brent Key kind of for that lead outside of Miami. So my last name I wanted to bring up, not on this list, but Kelvin Shepherd has been talked about a lot when it comes to this LSU head coaching search. And obviously, people ask him about it at a press conference, and he's like, it's hard to talk about a job that nobody's talked to me about. So that kind of shows us that nobody in the building has necessarily called him and asked him his thoughts on it. But that doesn't mean they won't. Doesn't mean his name will never come up. I think it's an interesting way to go about the coaching search, because you're looking at Lane Kiffin and then you're looking at Kelvin Shepherd, and that is two diametric opposing beliefs there. It's bringing the experienced guy who can win games and has SEC experience, and you think he's going to be the one to take you over the top, or you give a guy who has kind of found his way in the NFL and worked his way up through the ranks, who's still super young. He's an alumnus of your program. He was a great player when he was here. Do you bring him back home to be his first chance at making his mark in the coaching world? So that's really what you have to look at, is, do you want to get a guy who can do it, or do you want to get a guy who hasn't proven it yet, but you could be his opportunity?
Yeah. So I think there's a huge one more huge thing to think about here, which has a, here's the huge thing, and then there's like A, B, C, D under it. If Kelvin Shepherd is your guy, Detroit's in a playoff race. NFL playoffs get started in January, and depending on how well they do, can go all the way to February. Do you wait until then to get a coach? If so, what does that do to the recruiting class? What does that mean for your assistants? Or is he keeping the staff? That means he's not hiring anyone else and bringing in his own guys. Is he, what do you do? So do you sacrifice all that for, to get Kelvin Shepherd? Also, he does not have head coaching experience. He doesn't have recruiting experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, I love him. I think he's.
I agree.
I've heard clips of him. You got to see him, I believe, on Hard Knocks when he was the linebackers coach, and he's fiery. He's got everything you want, and that Dan Campbell-esque type of head coach. Not an X's and O's guys, but he is going to beat you down until you don't want to play football anymore. It's kind of like if you remember Tyler Booker from Alabama last year. He was asked in a pre-draft interview, what's your favorite part about football? And he said, making the other guy not want to play football anymore. That's kind of the vibe you get from Kelvin Shepherd, of he wants to beat the other team down to where they don't want to play anymore. But there's so many things that go into coaching a college football program, especially in this NIL era, that is so much more than just playing physical football. It's recruiting, it's training, it's retaining, it's developing players, it's bringing in a really good staff, because in all honesty, you can hire whoever you want as the head coach. If they don't have a good staff behind them, they will lose their job. If Lane Kiffin comes in and he hires a terrible staff behind him, he's going to be gone in 3 years. If Kelvin Shepherd comes in and builds a great staff around him, he'll be here for forever. So it really just depends on who's behind you. Because we saw with Brian Kelly when he had Matt House running the defense, and all of the assistants that he brought in that had no idea how to coach at LSU. He brought in his boy Polian to coach the special teams. That was a disaster. Like, that was just really bad. And then, obviously he brings back Corey Raymond, he brings back Frank Wilson, and the vibes get better. Obviously the record didn't, but LSU fans really, they're going to take a hold of your program if you don't take a hold of it before them. So yeah, speaking to that timeline piece that you brought up, college football championships on January 19th. That's right in the middle of the NFL playoffs. That's right when you're in the thick of it. If you're, if you're the Detroit Lions and you're looking to make a Super Bowl. So in 2021, Brian Kelly got hired at the end of November. Is that what they're looking to do again? Do they try to get somebody before the season's even wrapped up? That way they can come in, start to learn the building, start to learn the players, get them to buy in before you're even officially the head coach of the program. Is that something they could look to do? Because if they're looking to do that, it's going to be really hard to pry away Lane Kiffin and a college football, playoff run. They're a top 10 team.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get any of these coaches on this list, honestly.
Yeah.
Even the ones you're not. Well, James Franklin is signed with Virginia Tech.
If he comes to LSU, I'm done. If he comes to LSU, I'm done. I can't.
James Franklin is out. Eli Drink is a lean to I think Florida is what people are saying. If you look at the rest, Brom's not in necessarily the race, but he could be in the ACC and get in the back door that way.
Yeah, because them and Miami are tied in the ACC. Yeah. So all it takes is one more.
And they have the tiebreaker.
They have the tiebreaker for the head-to-head, because that's the big win he got. And then obviously Brent Key undefeated at Georgia Tech, Clark Lee at Vandy. If they beat Texas today, they're a shoo-in for the college football playoff. So it's hard to think Clark Lee would leave Vandy in the middle of the season he's putting together, let alone leave Vandy in general because he's putting together.
Yeah, and being an alum, who's going? That's what you're looking at. It's going to be a tight timeline for everyone who's worth. And I'm not saying any other candidate is unworthy, but it's going to be a tight timeline for anybody who's worth getting. The Kelvin Shepherd piece is very interesting. I really like him as a coach, and what you say, he's fiery and everything. It's just those question marks. And if you're LSU and you just let go of a coach who came in as the winningest coach and stuff, because he did not meet the standard of getting those wins, are you willing to reset and take some time and wait for, because if you get Kelvin Shepherd, it's not a guarantee, but you're going to have to, you're basically sacrificing 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
absolutely 100%.
Yeah, it's not, and that's not necessarily a guarantee, but that's how it's looking at this moment.
No, it's very hard to think that somebody would come in from the NFL level, never being a head coach before, with all the things that go into college football, and he'd immediately come in and be a 10-win coach. Yeah. That's unrealistic.
I think he can do it. I think he's a great coach and can be a very successful coach. But again, I have not heard him. I've seen people, I've seen him like tweets and stuff about it, but I've never heard him talk about, I would love to one day be the head coach at LSU, or I would love to go back to college in general.
He's made it very clear that he wants to be an NFL head coach. He has never made it clear that he wants to be a college football head coach. And those are completely different jobs. Yes. Look at Nick Saban, went to the Miami Dolphins, was terrible. Greatest college football coach of all time. Lane Kiffin, we just talked about it. One of the best coaches, if not the best coach in college football at the moment, went to the Raiders. Terrible. They're two different things. Bill Belichick right now at UNC, greatest NFL coach of all time. Can't get it done at the college level. Yeah. So they're two very, as much as people want to say it's the same thing now, it's still not. It's not the same thing. Right. You have to be able to differentiate, and you have to be able to buy into the program that you are leading. And not that Kelvin Shepherd couldn't buy in, but if he wants to be an NFL head coach, being a college football head coach is not the first step.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I look forward to getting through this situation. I've always equated this to a divorce. Um, when you know things are going bad, the first step is, okay, can we go ahead and finally break up? Once you get past that, is okay, can we move forward? Because who's new mommy, who's new daddy. Let's get it done. I'm ready to move forward. And then it's okay, now let's find happiness again.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
takes it's in football terms, it feels like forever, and this is realistically 3 or 4 months. So
Yeah. And it's going like every day at every hour, we are going to wonder, oh, are we signing him today? Are we getting a new coach today? Who's it going to be? And we might not find out an answer until February. But that doesn't mean we could stop the speculation. There's a lot of names on the board, a lot of names people can be excited about. So we're going to keep looking forward to it, gathering all the information we can. And the second something comes up, we will definitely get it out there, just because it's going to be a really exciting coaching search on a really weird timeline that'll lead us down a lot of really strange but exciting paths to the next head coach of LSU football. So I'm excited. I think there's a lot of potential to turn this program around and make us that team that everybody doesn't want to play. Teams don't want to be in Death Valley right now. It's kind of just where you come and you play a tough football game, but we want it to be where opponents' dreams come to die. That's the whole point of it being called Death Valley. And for LSU to come in and really be the bullies, because that's what they've been in the past, and that's how they won national championships. So let's get back to that. If I had to pick one right now, I'd say my early favorite is John Summerall. I think because he's in the state. I think because he could be more on their timeline, with Tulane now being a 2-loss American Conference team, and you've got USF and Memphis really fighting for that group of 5 playoff spot. I think he is the most realistic option to get hired before the end of the year, if that makes sense. Just because of the way that timeline would work. But obviously you can't count out, Lane Kiffin and other SEC guys. So we'll see what happens. I've got a lot of positivity about it, but the thing is last time when we were looking at LSU head coach hiring, nobody thought it was going to be Brian Kelly. His name never came up until he was hired. So it could be a guy who we haven't even looked at, thought about, or discussed yet. Could be somebody completely out of the blue who comes down to Baton Rouge and turns Baton Rouge around. So we'll see what happens. That's going to be the end of it for Louisiana Gameday today. Obviously not going to do the national stuff just because we had so much Louisiana stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Before we go, I do want to say rest in peace and my condolences to the family of former Tulane strength and conditioning coach and the current, Houston
Hester, yeah.
Coach Kurt Hester passed away last Saturday. Houston is doing a tribute to him today. The Unbreakable game. They're wearing their black jerseys. They moved up that game, the black jersey game, to today. Just in support of him. Black was his favorite color, and so they're doing that in honor of him today. So rest in peace.
And the quote he put out before, just before his passing was, cancer might beat me, but I'm going to give it every punch I can, or whatever that quote was. I might be paraphrasing, but he really was, fighting until the end. And not only that, but his birthday passed just a couple days after. So it was tough timing. It was tough for people who really cared about him. You saw people from all over the country who you thought had no connection to the man, offering their prayers and condolences, which shows how much he meant, not only to our state, but to college football. So, rest in peace, Coach Hester, and we thank you for what you did, not only for our programs, but for young student athletes, turning them from boys to men. So obviously a little bit of a rough episode today as far as the positivity goes, but hopefully we'll be back next week. Looking forward to the Alabama game for LSU, hoping Frank Wilson can lead us into Tuscaloosa and pull out a win. We'll be looking forward to seeing if Grambling can stay on the outside reach of getting to the SWAC championship, and what can we expect from the teams who we didn't get to cover today. So we will see you next week. Thank you all for watching. This was Louisiana Game Day.